Someone is thinking about you, right? Now, not because you texted him, not because you called, not because you did anything at all. They're thinking about you because you stopped. You stopped responding. You stopped reacting. You stopped giving them what they wanted. And that one decision, that single choice to go quiet, okay, broke something inside them that no argument, no fight, no revenge ever could have touched. What you are about to learn in this video is something that most people will never figure out on their own. This is a psychological weapon so powerful that kings used it to collapse the loyalty of entire courts, that generals used it to defeat enemies without drawing a sword, that the most dangerous, most untouchable, most quietly powerful people alive use it every single day, and it costs you absolutely nothing. Stay with me, because the next 20 minutes will permanently change how you see power, how you see people, and most importantly, how you see yourself. Before we go any deeper, if you have never been on this channel before, this is where we talk about the psychology of power, the dark side of human behavior, the things nobody teaches you in school, but that every successful, untouchable person already knows. Hit subscribe right now and turn on notifications, because what is coming in this video and in every video after this will give you an edge that most people spend their entire lives searching for and never finding. Now, let us get into it. Let me ask you something completely honest. When someone disrespects you, what is your first instinct? You want to say something? You want to correct them? You want to defend yourself? You want them to know they crossed the wrong person? That feeling is completely human, and it is exactly why most people never build real power, because the moment you react, you have already lost. Think about what actually happens when you react. Every word you say in anger is a confession of where it hurts. Every defense you offer is a map to your weakness. Every argument you enter tells the other person exactly where to push next time. You did not protect yourself. You educated them on how to hurt you better. Machiavelli understood this 500 years ago, and nothing about human nature has changed since he wrote that a leader who reacts to every provocation makes himself predictable, and a predictable man is a controllable man. The leaders who lasted were not the loudest. They were not the most aggressive. They were the most composed. The people who built real, lasting, generational power, they all understood one thing that the reactive majority never could. Your attention is your most valuable resource, not your money, not your time, your attention, because your attention is what gives other people their sense of worth in relation to you. Every time you react to someone, every time you engage, defend, or explain yourself to them, you are telling them that they matter enough to affect your state of mind. And that is an enormous amount of power to give away for free. The powerful man does not give that away. He withholds it. He protects it like currency, because it is currency. And the day you start treating your attention like the limited, precious resource it is the day the entire dynamic of your relationships begins to shift. Here is something most people do not know. Being ignored does not just hurt. Emotionally, it registers in your brain as physical pain, not as a metaphor, not as a poetic comparison. Literally, biologically, physically. Researchers at UCLA ran a study on social exclusion. They found that when participants were ignored or left out, the brain activated the anterior cingulate cortex. That is the same neural region that fires when your body experiences physical pain. Same pathway, same chemical response, same survival alarm. Being ignored by someone who matters to you is to your brain indistinguishable from being punched. Now, let that sit for a moment, because the implications of that are enormous. When you withdraw your attention from someone, you are not just being cold. You are not just being distant. You are triggering a biological survival response in that person. Their nervous system reads your absence as a threat. Their brain enters a problem-solving panic. What did I do wrong? Why are they not responding? Do I matter to them at all? What do I need to do to get back to where we were? And here is the dark part that most people never get. 2. When those questions go unanswered, the brain does not just wait. It fills in the blanks, automatically, immediately, without permission. And it always fills them in with the worst possible answers. The human brain, when deprived of information, defaults to catastrophe. It assumes the worst because, historically, assuming the worst kept us alive. So when you go silent, when you withdraw your energy and give no explanation, the other person's mind creates a version of events that is almost always more devastating than anything you could have said out loud. You become bigger in their mind when you are absent than you ever were when you were present. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik effect. The human brain obsesses over incomplete things, unfinished stories, unanswered messages, unreturned attention. When you leave someone in silence, you become an open loop in their mind, an unresolved chapter. And people cannot stop reading a chapter they have not finished. They replay conversations. They rehearse what they would say if you responded. They think about you in the shower, at the gym, before they fall asleep. Not because you did something dramatic, because you did nothing at all. That is not cruelty. That is human psychology, and the most powerful people understand this, not to weaponize it against innocent people, but to protect themselves from ever being on the receiving end of it. Julius Caesar had an enemy in the Roman Senate, a senator who humiliated him in public, who laughed at his proposals, who expected Caesar to fight back. Caesar never gave him a reaction, no argument, no political countermove, no whispered threats. He simply stopped acknowledging the man's existence. No eye contact in Senate sessions, no response to public provocations, no reaction when the senator's allies tried to stir conflict. Caesar moved through every room as though the man was furniture. The senator became obsessed. He pushed harder. He escalated. He made more noise, trying to get a reaction, and Caesar remained completely, glacially unmoved. Do you know what happened? The senator destroyed himself. His obsession made him reckless. His desperation made him look unstable. His increasingly aggressive behavior with no response from Caesar made him look like a man fighting his shadow, and eventually the Senate turned on him, not because Caesar asked them to, but because the senator had made himself look foolish by chasing a reaction he never received. Caesar never had to lift a finger. The silence did all the work. This pattern repeats throughout history. Abraham Lincoln faced brutal public criticism throughout his presidency. He had a famous habit. Whenever someone wrote him a vicious personal letter, he would write a detailed response, pour all his frustration into it, and then fold it up and never send it. He called it getting the hot letter out of his system. He understood that responding would only feed the conflict. That silence, combined with continued action, was more devastating than any rebuttal. And in modern business, this principle is just as ruthless. Steve Jobs famously used silence as a management weapon, being completely frozen out by Jobs, having him walk past you without acknowledgement, stop including you in meetings, suddenly become unreachable, was considered the most feared thing that could happen at Apple. Not being fired, being ignored, because being ignored by someone powerful signals to everyone watching that you have lost your value in their eyes, and people will do almost anything to get back into the attention of someone who matters. The lesson is consistent across centuries and cultures. Your silence is not emptiness. Your silence is a statement. It says, you are not worth the cost of my energy, and there is no insult on earth more psychologically devastating than that. Stop for 1 second. If this video is hitting differently than content you normally watch if something in what I am saying is clicking in a way that other things have not hit the like button right now. Not for me, because it tells the algorithm this content deserves to reach more people. People who have been reacting their whole lives. People who have been defending and explaining and justifying themselves to people who are never going to understand them anyway. Your like changes who sees this next dot, and if you have not, have subscribed yet, do it now, because what I'm about to cover in the second half of this video is where it gets truly practical. Not theory, not history, your actual life starting today. There are 4 levels to this weapon. Most people accidentally fall into level 1. Almost no one makes it to level 4. Let me break down all of them so you understand exactly where you are and exactly where you need to be. Level 1 is called the reactive ignore. This is what most people do when they are hurt. Someone wrongs them. They go quiet. They give the silent treatment. And here's why this is not power at all, because it is completely visible. Everyone can feel the emotion behind it. Everyone can see you are doing it deliberately. Everyone knows you are hurt, and this is your response to that hurt. The reactive ignore is not silence. It is a very loud emotional announcement disguised as quiet. It says, "You got to me. This is my protest." In the moment the other person realizes that you have handed them power, because now they know their actions affected you deeply enough to change your behavior. That is not a weapon. That is a confession. Level 2 is the strategic ignore. This is where things become genuinely interesting. The strategic ignore is calm. It is deliberate. It is not about punishing anyone. It is about protecting your own energy by redirecting it toward things that matter. You stop giving time to what does not serve your life. Not dramatically, not with an announcement. You simply become occupied with your actual priorities. You reply later or not at all, based on whether it deserves your time. You greet politely in passing, but you do not engage beyond that. You are physically present in a room, but completely unreachable emotionally. The message is not, "I am angry at you." The message is, "I have better things to do." That is a fundamentally different energy, and people feel the difference in their bones, even if they cannot name it. Level 3 is selective visibility. Now we are in fully Machiavellian territory. Selective visibility is about conscious control of who receives your warmth. You remain open, engaged, and genuinely present with the people who deserve your energy. You remain polite, but utterly inaccessible to those who do not. And you make sure that contrast is visible. When someone who has wronged you watches you laugh freely with other people, watches you be generous and warm and fully present with everyone, accept them. That is a different level of psychological impact entirely, because it removes their last defense. They cannot tell themselves that you have shut down. They cannot say you are cold or broken or damaged. You are clearly fine. You are clearly engaged. You are clearly giving to others what they no longer receive from you, and that specificity, that precise withdrawal of warmth, aimed only at them, is far more devastating than the general coldness ever could be. It is not that the sun stopped shining. It is that the sun moved, and you are standing in the shadow. Level 4 is the elevation response. This is the master level. This is what separates the merely composed from the truly untouchable. The elevation response is not silence as a weapon. It is movement as a statement. When someone attacks you, dismisses you, tries to diminish you, you do not respond. You build, you grow, you achieve. You become undeniable while they are still waiting for you to react. Your success becomes the response. Your growth becomes the answer. Your life lived fully, powerfully, visibly forward is the most complete and devastating statement you can ever make to someone who tried to break you, because it proves they failed, without you ever having said a single word about it. 4 levels, and the higher you go, the more completely untouchable you become. There is a reason that truly manipulative people use withdrawal as their primary weapon. Narcissists do this instinctively. Toxic partners, controlling parents, abusive authority figures. They go cold without explanation. They disappear without warning. They withdraw warmth for no visible reason. And then they come back, sometimes weeks later, as if nothing happened. And here is the terrifying truth about why this works. It is not because the person on the receiving end is weak. It is because of how the human brain is biologically wired. When someone who has been a consistent source of warmth and connection suddenly withdraws that warmth without explanation, the brain enters what psychologists call a seeking state. It begins actively searching for what went wrong, replaying every recent interaction, looking for the thing it must have done to cause this, generating increasingly elaborate explanations. Psychologists call the mechanism intermittent reinforcement. Unpredictable warmth creates far stronger psychological attachment than consistent warmth does. That is why slot machines are more addictive than a guaranteed payout. The unpredictability is the addiction. The brain becomes hooked on the chase. And when a person who normally gives you warmth suddenly becomes cold without explanation, your brain treats getting that warmth back as a survival priority. This is why people stay in toxic relationships long after they should have left. This is why they forgive behavior they told themselves was unforgivable. This is why they change themselves, shrink themselves, sacrifice themselves to get back to the warmth they remember. They are not choosing to be treated badly. They are responding to a deeply wired biological program. Now, I want to say something important here. Understanding this mechanism and using it deliberately against someone you claim to love is not power, it is damage. It is the behavior of someone using psychological knowledge as a tool to control people who trusted them. And that kind of behavior always, eventually, collapses back on itself. But understanding how this works, recognizing when it is being used on you, knowing how to identify the pattern before you are too deep in it to see clearly, that is armor. That is the difference between being a victim of this weapon and being the person who sees it coming from a mile away. Because if you do not understand how it works, someone else will use it on you, and you will not even realize it is happening until you are already searching for approval from someone who has no intention of giving it to you. So how do you actually build this in yourself? How do you become the person who cannot be provoked, who cannot be manipulated by withdrawal, who does not need the last word, who does not carry other people's chaos into their own life? There are 4 mindset shifts, and they work, but only if you are honest with yourself about where you currently are. The first shift is to stop needing to be understood. This is the hardest one. Most people react because they need the other person to get it, to understand their side, to acknowledge what they contributed, to say, yes, I see you, I understand you. You are right. That need is a leash, and whoever holds that leash controls you completely. Asterisk, because as long as you need their understanding, you will keep engaging. You will keep explaining. You will keep coming back to the conversation. You will stay available to be hurt by them again and again. The moment you genuinely release the need to be understood by everyone, the leash drops and you become unchainable. You do not need their agreement. You do not need their validation. You do not need their apology to move forward with your life. You know what you know. You act according to your own values, and you move forward. The second shift is to replace reaction with observation. When someone provokes you, do not respond. Watch what they do when they do. Not receive the reaction they expected. Most people, when their provocation lands in silence, will will escalate. Push harder. Try a different angle. Become visibly more agitated. And in that escalation, hey, will tell you everything about themselves. Hey, that you could never have learned from a reaction. Their need for your reaction reveals their need for control. Their escalation reveals their insecurity. Their desperation reveals how much of their own sense of power depends on being able to affect you. Your silence is not just protection. It is a diagnostic tool, and the information it reveals is more valuable than anything you would have gotten from a fight. The third shift is to make peace with being misunderstood. The most powerful people in history have been misunderstood, described as cold, distant, arrogant, difficult, because they would not explain themselves to everyone, because they chose their responses carefully, because they reserved their energy for things that mattered. Let it be misunderstood. If someone's opinion of you can be permanently destroyed by your refusal to react, that opinion was never built on reality. It was built on your performance for their benefit, and you do not owe anyone a performance. The fourth shift is to invest your energy upward. Always. Every unit of energy you spend reacting to someone is energy subtracted from your actual life, your work, your health, your real relationships, the things you are actually trying to build. The most completely Machiavellian move you will ever make is simply becoming so focused on building something worth building that you genuinely do not have the time or the inclination to participate in other people's attempts to drag you down. Elevation is not a concept. It is a daily, hourly decision, and every time you choose it over reaction, you become a little more of the person you are trying to become. Before this video ends, you need the rules, because this weapon, like all weapons, can hurt the wrong person if it is handled carelessly. Rule 1. Never ignore out of ego. If your silence comes from a wounded ego, if it is driven by pride or the need to feel superior, it is not power. It is pouting with a more sophisticated appearance. Everyone around you can feel the difference between true indifference and performed indifference. True, powerful ignoring comes from a place of genuine peace with the situation, not from hurt, not from pride, not from wanting them to feel what you felt, from actual, settled indifference. That is not something you can fake. You have to build it, and that takes time and genuine internal work. Rule 2. Never use this against people who are vulnerable. There is a fundamental difference between withdrawing your attention from someone who disrespected you and emotionally abandoning someone who depends on you for stability. Using withdrawal against a child is not power. It is abuse. Using it against a grieving partner is not strength. It is cruelty. Using it against someone already broken is not strategy. It is predation, and cruelty, without exception, always returns to its source. Rule 3. Always know your intention before you act. Ask yourself honestly, are you ignoring this person because it genuinely protects your peace? Or are you ignoring them because you want to see them suffer? One of those is self-preservation. One is vengeance. The Machiavellian mind does not operate from vengeance. Vengeance is emotional. Emotion is reactive. Reactive is weak. He operates from strategy. Cold, clear, deliberate strategy. Know which one is driving your silence, because the energy behind the action changes the outcome completely. Rule 4. Do not become the thing you were. Defending yourself against the person who uses silence as emotional punishment, who disappears without explanation. To control how others feel was often first hurt by someone who did the same thing to them. The line between protecting your own energy and using withdrawal as a manipulation tool is thinner than most people are comfortable acknowledging. Check yourself regularly. Be honest about which side of that line you are standing on, because losing yourself in pursuit of power is not a victory. It is a different kind of defeat. Here is what all of this has been building toward: The most powerful person in any room is usually the quietest, not because they have nothing to say, but because they have chosen not to spend it carelessly. Their silence is not emptiness, it is fullness. A person who is genuinely at peace with who they are, who is genuinely secure in their own value, does not need external confirmation of that value, does not need to win every exchange, does not need to make sure you understand that you hurt them. They simply continue, unbothered by what does not deserve their attention, unbroken by what was designed to break them, unstoppable because there is no lever anyone can pull to force a reaction from them. That is what this is about, not tricks, not manipulation tactics, not revenge strategies, a fundamental transformation in how you carry yourself through the world when you stop needing reactions. You stop being controllable when you stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided who you are. You become unpredictable, and unpredictable people cannot be managed. When you choose to move forward rather than react, every single time, in every single situation, you become the kind of person who walks into a room and changes the energy without saying a word, not because you are aggressive, not because you are performing confidence, because you are complete without their approval, without their attention, without their permission, and a complete person. A person who does not need what you have to offer is the most genuinely dangerous kind of person there. It's because you cannot threaten someone who has nothing to lose from losing you. You cannot manipulate someone who does not need what you are withholding. You cannot control someone whose peace comes from inside them rather than from anything you can give or take away. That is true power, not the power to hurt people, the power to be unhurtable. And that is what this channel is about, building that every single video, one psychological principle at a time. If this video hit differently, if something in here landed in a place that other things have not reached, I need you to do 3 things right now. 1, like this video. It takes 1 second, and it tells the algorithm that this content deserves to be in front of more people. People who are tired of reacting. People who are ready to start moving differently, to subscribe and turn on notifications. The next video is going deeper. We are covering the psychology of the person who never loses. Not because they are lucky, not because life was easier for them, but because of how they think before everyone else even wakes up. You do not want to miss it. 3, drop a comment below right now. Tell me one situation in your life where going silent turned out to be the most powerful move you ever made, or one situation where you wish you had stayed silent instead of reacting. Read every comment, and if you know someone who has been giving their power away, who keeps reacting to the wrong people, who is exhausted from defending themselves to people who do not deserve access to them, send them this video. It might be the most useful thing they watch all year. I will see you in the next one. Stay sharp, stay composed, stay untouchable.